All right, go for it. What were you saying?
Awesome. So, Gina, I'm so happy to have you here today. We're gonna give some people some time to come in and we're just gonna just have a really awesome conversation today and just really talk about just some things that have been on, I feel like, my heart, my friends, people in my space. And I just want to remind everyone, like the whole purpose that I started this podcast is it's called Sun and Sky. And the reason why I called it Sun and Sky is because what is the sky without a sun to sit in it? And what is the sun without a sky so that it can light it up? And, in this day and age, we're really in a new world. We're in a new era, and we're navigating the same kind of hardships, but in a new world. And so whether we're healers, a therapist or artist, I mean, really, they're all healers to me. I want to share how different people in those intentional spaces are cultivating a way to navigate, using the intellect and the heart. So just like the sun and sky, the mind and the heart are both, they are very important. They need each other, and they are also very important in how we take care of ourselves. And I think that when I first started it, I was like, okay, let me do therapist and artist. But, some of my upcoming guests, I mean, like, they're not really exactly in those like tight frames, if you want to say. But I'm just so happy to have you on here because, Gina, I mean, we've just had amazing conversations, mashallah, like, God bless. Like, I can't even like, it's just like a lot. It's like a lot in a great way. And I want to give everyone a little bit of background about you. So I met you through George Mason, and we have like mutual friends and everything. But I want to give a background about you. So Gina, mashallah, God bless her, has been practicing therapy for about a decade. And she's recently been co-hosting public health conversations about AI and mental health, which is like my favorite topic, with the AI Collective. And she also co-runs the Effective Mental Health Global Mental Health Fellowship, designed to help mental health advocates collaborate on solutions suited to their region, culture, and effective measurement of well-being. So before we dive into like, chatting it up, I want to hear about what you got going on, like what you've been up to, like especially about the collective, because like I've been hearing conversations here and there with like on social media about AI and mental health. And then, you have some, different ends of the spectrum, like this is ruining us. And you have other people like, no, this is bettering us. So I want to hear what you've been working on and like, what are your thoughts on this conversation?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for the intro. And then I always agree to do these when the person on the other side has an openness to the different ways all of us exist in the world. So I'm like you, or I think as much as I'm a therapist, there are so many people I meet that I think are therapists too. They're not professionally, but all around the world, that word takes on different form, whether it's a mentor, a guide, a leader, a guru, and there's all
Mhm.
things that come with that. So I'm interested
Mhm.
in not being limited by that word either.
Right.
And artists and poets are healers too, and the way you
Yeah.
use words. And so I think with you, I've known you for a really long time now, that our flow of conversation exists the way that it does because you use words that open up other ways of thinking and being, and we're not just
Mhm.
limited by the way we use our minds. So I just want to thank you for having the channel and
Alhamdulillah.
yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Amber.
Hey,
So happy to see you. Hey, so Miss Sylvia. Hey, hey, Ma. How are you? I'm so happy to have you guys on here. Gina, is a really good friend of mine, and we were just talking about some of the stuff that she is working on with AI and mental health. So I want to hear more about like what has that conversation been like in the spaces that you've been in? Like, because there's like I shared, there's like it's a commentary that's been happening on social media about it, but a lot of people don't get exposed to like maybe the conversations that you're having.
Sure. Yeah. So
Yeah.
welcome to people who came in. For a second, I was like, oh, I forgot we were doing a public conversation, which is a good sign. But Annette and I always have these amazing conversations. We're like, should we have recorded these or made it public? And I'm right in that space where I'm like, where is keeping something private retain its beauty, its healing, and where is the public come in? And so, one of the things we just did with this series that I'm co-hosting with AI Collective is we ran like a abbreviated live therapy session with
Mhm.
someone that I know who's lost both her parents and has been in therapy for 3 years. And it was a strange feeling because we were trying to bring grief out in a public space, but in a place where we are also talking about AI and tools and technology. And so the
Mhm.
speaker, who's a therapist, he had a tool for IFS, so internal family systems, that he had on the screen behind him as he did this abbreviated therapy session. So on the
Wow.
one hand, it was like a really sacrilegious thing to put someone in a kind of modified therapy with a tool in the back. So like it almost felt
Mhm.
weird to do that. But on another level, it was like we need to educate people on how to use AI and how to actually benefit from the tool. And so we're in this really weird spot now where I think therapists need to come out and be more public, even though our nature is typically
Yeah.
more reserved. So that's a
Mhm.
big incentive for me being here. And I can't think of a better person than you to
Wow.
help keep me in the right space as I talk.
Mhm. Yeah, that must have been so interesting because, like, I've had different people that I know, friends, colleagues that have used, Chat GPT, to like, process some things because either they were in a space where they didn't have, the ability to be in therapy, like they couldn't afford it, or, they were just had like bad experiences with therapy. And so they refused to go back. So they were resorting to ChatGPT. And I never really would say, no, you shouldn't do that or be careful. But I did realize that, it has its pros and its cons, but I realized that with some people, it was almost to the point that it was leading them to be more in like a silo in seclusion. And I remember we had this conversation the other day of how healing sometimes in humanity happens in groups, like when we're
Yes.
doing something together, when we do a ritual together.
Yeah.
And so like I want to hear what your thoughts are on like if you've come across that or if people have shared that, like what is your like perspective on that?
So the couple things that come to mind is where AI is helpful for cognition. So like
Mhm.
the way that sometimes our mind gets jumbled, we have a lot of threads. Maybe I don't want to use this term, I'm using it loosely, but you have ADHD or you have like a scattered brain. And so you need a place to organize. And I think that sometimes that's a helpful thing before you talk to a therapist or a friend that is kind of like a therapist, and it sort of arranges and processes your ideas. But I think the part that gets tricky is there's an emotional experience to our healing that is hard to name, and it shows up when you're with someone and your nervous system relaxes, or maybe
Mhm.
pain kicks up and it's actually part of the healing because you're seeing it when you talk to this person. AI can't detect that. So it can't detect as you're chatting whether you're performing, you're masking, you're convincing yourself. And I think we're really good at that. And we've,
Yeah.
even before AI showed up, I think you've heard therapy speak, like people being able to talk about therapy and healing and convince each other that we've made progress, but something doesn't sit right. And so I think we were already kind of in that performance part in our culture, and then AI stepping in the scene almost exacerbated that to some extent, as you can
Yes.
feel like,
Mm.
oh, no, no, I got this. I don't need to even share my vulnerability because I put it in this chat. So that interests me very much.
Yeah, that's so interesting because like I feel that I think someone is not muted. I don't if someone's on here. So I was just gonna say that like I think that kind of back to what we were talking about with the group healing, and I've noticed that the times that I've had space alone where I've, kind of like it's been like I would say like I'll be a little bit personal, but it's been an experience where I haven't really been able to be out and about and I've had to be more at home. Like that's also necessary too. Like I just feel like there's like this balance and like I guess what I would like to like talk about is that I've found that when you have too much of that, it can be overwhelming because it's almost kind of like somebody said it in I think on Facebook, it's like an echo chamber. It's like you're just talking too much to yourself and you don't have anyone mirroring back, like grace you don't have anyone mirroring back rahma, like compassion. Um, and so like then when you go out and it doesn't necessarily have to be a group therapy session, but if you go out and it's like an event of something that you enjoy, whether it's a free music event or, going to a park and like running or just even stepping outside and taking a walk. But just like I noticed that there's like something healing that happens. And so I would say I want to hear what your perspective is on like how do you know really like where's the balance of like if you're spending too much time alone and you're like, oh, I need time alone, like I need to heal alone.
Mhm.
And that's kind of been a thread that people have shared. It's like, oh, you can't move on to your next relationship until you've healed,
Mhm.
or you can't, and it's too many can't, but there's so many layers to each human being and what their needs are. So I would love to hear what your
Yeah,
thoughts on
that's a
that.
great question. So I'm gonna back up just for a second because you introduced the intention behind your podcast with Sun and Sky, and I love analogies. So one analogy that I love is a really obvious one, which is the way our bodies are made and the systems in our body reflecting, in some sense, the outside world. So we're mainly composed of water, and we need that to flow. We need that to be hydrated. And so, and movement is often a sign of some, health, right? Ability to move. And so one thing I was introduced to a couple years ago from somebody that was really into this was the fascia. So like we have bone, we got muscle, we've got something called fascia, which is like a web that binds everything together and it like connects our whole system. And so some of the work in therapy is also sadly newly body work too. So like people have been
Mhm.
healing each other for a while before therapy came along, and a lot of it was going out into the world, tending to the body, caring for the body. And so the fascia is something that is intelligent. And so it responds when it feels unsafe. It tightens up, it gets locked. And you can kind of feel it in certain areas where like you're restricted in your movement, but you
Mhm.
stretching is not enough. And so one of the things I want to reference with healing and just hold that thought, as
Yeah.
I go into this is like we know the body heals itself automatically when we sleep. So like when
Mhm.
think like very low stimuli, no light, no sound, the
Yeah.
body's still. That rest and recovery happens in that quiet, kind of boring space. And then you wake up and you start again. And so our system is pattern, so it'll kind of do the same thing every morning where I'm like, oh, I always have my cup of coffee and then I do that. And so it's really hard to break the pattern when after the healing occurs. So I would almost use that analogy with where is the water blocked and it's not flowing, and you looking closely at your own system when you wake up after the healing is happening while you're sleeping. So you have to be like,
Mhm.
okay, I spent time alone to recover. I was still, I was at rest. I paid attention to my thoughts and my heart. And then you go out in the world and you make sure you interact with people that hopefully have some instinct for that too, because we know proximity to certain humans opens up other ways of thinking and being, just like you and I chatted, and why
Yeah.
we're doing this conversation is like there's a
Mhm.
healing in who you talk to and what you talk about.
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't know if that
Yeah,
tracked
no,
enough, but
that's powerful because I just feel like, the way I've read and learned about like the nervous system, it's always been in the context of, oh, your nervous system makes you like aware of like, danger, or it's according to data of like previous experiences.
yeah.
But also, recently I heard from a good friend of mine who, speaks more in the terminology of energy,
Hmm.
that they said that sometimes actually your nervous system is getting, I guess your spidey senses are getting turned on because you're actually now inquiring new data that's not
Yeah.
familiar.
Yeah.
So can you comment on like how like that has you've seen in your experience with people that you've worked with, like how does that show up like in the body? Because like sometimes people like, oh yeah, that I'm uncomfortable like that, and like kind of deciphering between, is it because I'm triggered
Yes.
from like a past negative memory, or is it because, oh my God, like someone is showing up and being like very similar to the way that I would want to be treated. And because I haven't been around that, this is kind of like, oh, what's your motive? Like, so, people deal with so many different layers, but can the nervous system, I guess maybe that's my question, more collected, can the nervous system be kind of like activated when there's new information that's good? Like
Yes.
good as into that person, like something that they wanted to receive.
Yeah, I love that question so much because I think of the common advice for like performers or people giving public speaking or anxiety and excitement feel the same in the body. So like our heart racing, feeling kind of
Mhm.
cold. And so that flip is really subtle. And so you don't actually want to not have anything rock the boat. Then you're not living, you're not alive. And one thing you made me think of is I get this from clients a lot actually, where they ask me, like, my gut's telling me not to do this. Can I trust it? And so
Mm.
one thing I thought of, and I'm not promoting this ideology at all, I just read everything and I consider them really nice ways to hold information. And one of them was somebody told me about this thing called human design. I don't necessarily believe it's true. I'm not disputing it, but the thing that I took from it was that every person can have like a network in their between their organs and their brain that are stronger or weaker. So like
Mm.
mine could be my spleen and my heart are really in good communication, but I'm weaker with this other organ. And the part
Wow.
that's interesting about that I like was the a piece of this knowledge base that when you come within 6 feet of somebody, a particular person, they could unlock an insight or a key almost to another system of response. And I was like, that's a really beautiful way to look at it. Like,
Yeah.
whether I don't know if it's true or not, but I could definitely say there's something really powerful there of like maybe
Yeah.
when I talk to you, you have a really
Mhm.
strong gut heart connection and your actions lead you to having a more fulfilling emotional experience, but maybe it's not like the wisest choice or not the most strategic or rational, and somebody else could be like, use your brain a little bit, like that might not be good long term. So I kind of see it that way, is like
Yeah, yeah.
we rely on each other. I think we are made of many minds and we need each other to have all our systems
Hmm.
operate
Hmm.
well.
Hmm. Yeah, that's wow, like that's making me think about like, because I've been paying attention more to like after finding out like that, different things in life and triggers help, you feel them in your body in different places. But that's like really beautiful to like think about because I just think about music, for example, like when you hear a song that you really love, or how like your body kind of relaxes, or like, you know, um, even just if you hear like birds chirping outside of your window when you first wake up, it's like that. If that can affect us, like imagine maybe the frequency of somebody's voice,
Yes.
like how if you hear someone who's familiar, even if like they've triggered you in the past, but just even just for a moment, hearing their voice
Yes.
kind of can ground you or calm you down. And I just think it's so beautiful. And I kind of want to just more like now have a conversation. Like, I think it's beautiful because we're so complex. Like we have so many layers and each person is different, because of their experiences and their body and their genealogy and their lineage. And there's this quote from Sadhguru. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a yogi, and he said, as many people that exist on the earth, that's how many religions there are. And I really like that quote because he's basically like because he has a thing for inner engineering. And he talks about like inner engineering is like understanding your manual. And so your interpretation of religion is going to be different than someone else's because of the different experiences that you've had. And so, I was kind of like diving in a little bit recently with like music and sound therapy. And I wanted to see, like, with you, like, have you come across anything that stood out to you personally that is like maybe something that's like been healing that you've been listening to, or is it just even an environment that you've found yourself in that is like, oh, that's like my go-to, like kind of like thing to be around to lift my spirit up or to calm my nervous system down. For me, it's just been listening to the birds outside of my window. Like
I
that's
love
just been
that.
like, kind of my excitement
Yeah.
for calmness. Yeah.
That's beautiful. First of all, you when you mentioned religion, I was thinking of the original meaning of the word is to bind. And so it
Mhm.
goes back to community, like it exists. I can imagine there's so many religions if there's so many
Yeah.
communities. And so I'm really interested in that also with the conversation about AI, where I think in some sense there are more community forming now because like people we're being tested of whether we can collaborate together or if people are happy with just the tech and them and they can you could live with that potentially and there are people doing it. So that's
Yeah.
interesting to me. And then in terms of like sound, I have explored a little bit of like sound frequencies. I actually
Mhm.
looped one for like a couple, maybe it must have been an hour, a couple hours when I was on a plane. And I
Mm.
remember I experienced like a lot of love and like in a way
Mm.
that I'm able to access in a way if I think about certain people or certain memories, but I didn't expect looping a particular frequency. And maybe it me being on a plane contributed, I'm not sure. And that was a really cool experience. Like I was like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
there, but I didn't have to think about anything. It just like took my body there. Um,
Wow.
and
I
then the
love
last,
that.
yeah, and then the last one I'll say is well, two I'll say. One is I got introduced to like whales at some point in terms of I
Mm.
was doing like a sound app or something and it was trying to find what your voice sounds like and I think I got a whale or something. So I was listening to whale sounds and I was like, this is a really it was like eerie and healing and I went through so many feelings where I was like, is that what a whale sounds like? And I
Mm.
just am interested in like people's voices, like whether or not that's accurate of mine, but I do think people's voices are places too. I always say like a person's a place or their voice
Mm.
is like a I don't want to say an animal, but like in the same way
Yeah.
a bird makes you feel a certain way. Some people's voices make you feel like you're in the air or you're in the water. And I think that's just like a beautiful
Mm.
way to
Yeah.
experience like all the layers of people.
Oh my God, I love that. Especially like what you said about the plane. I've experienced something similar. Like, and I wonder if it has to do with I've had conversations with you about like our elements and our horoscopes and so I'm a Gemini and my sign is an air sign.
Mm,
So air sign, it's like sometimes when there's too much wind, I feel deflated. I notice like if I'm out and about and it's a very windy day, I need to be very warm and covered and grounded. And so if I'm by myself, I'll feel like really lightheaded. But if I'm with someone who's an earth sign, it might even not even experience that because they're more grounded. But even when I've been on a plane, I felt like intense, amazing, like just awesome emotions every time I'm in the air. Um, and when I'm listening to music, I'm just like, oh, dang, we're here already. I was actually just kind of vibing out. It's just kind of, but I don't know. Maybe it has to do with the fact that we're in the air, but it's like there's like something around me
Yeah.
shielding me from like, the wind. But I love traveling for that, for that reason, because there's a part in between where people are like, they're just kind of like holding on to their seat and they're like, okay, just let this be over. And I'm just like putting my headphones in and I'm like talking to people and like,
Yeah, I mean
"You're
that
like, are you okay?" I'm like, yeah, we're just gonna be in the air. Like we're all gonna be there.
yeah. I think people forget that outside of like the ideas and we're calling it astrology or there's certain like feelings we get when we hear those words, but beyond that, our words and language come from way further back than we think about, like root words
Mhm.
and elements, like that's in our language. Like there are words
Yes.
that think of even the word current. Like I was just telling someone current, like water currents means the present. And I think even the way emotions flow is like water. And so you can
Mhm.
find patterns in words and maybe some connection between water and emotions and air and ideas, like,
Mhm.
and I think that we shouldn't forget that. I don't think that
Yeah.
that's superstitious or that that's backwards thinking. I think that's more of our nature is more poetic. Like there are aspects
Yes.
of our existence that if you cut that out, I think you cut out a vital way of being alive. Like if you remove
Yeah.
poetry or art, and how you use words, like revives that and kicks that back up.
Yes, absolutely. Like curiosity for me is one of my favorite things that I love about myself. A lot of people have, in my experience have said they enjoy conversation with me because I'm very curious. Like I just, if someone says something and I don't understand it, I'm not gonna just leave it. I want to ask a little bit more so I can make sure I'm understanding. And I think with this, like what's been going on in the world right now, like there's like so many different things happening. I'm not only gonna comment on what's going harshly, but there's a lot of beautiful things that are happening too.
Yeah.
And I think that with curiosity, that's been actually a tool of mine that I've been using to self-soothe through witnessing all the other stuff that's been happening. So, like, I've been intentionally watching documentaries on different animals before I sleep. And that's been really like, oh my God, it's like, I feel like it's like a secret tool that I just want to share with everyone. And so I wanted to kind of like see with you, like, what is like, if you could give everyone a tool or like a habit or like just something, a piece of information intentionally to like navigate what we're experiencing collectively, because we're all online, like, look, obviously here we're online, there's a social media, there's news. Media is heavy in everyone's experience. And sometimes it can overwhelm you. Sometimes it can, depending on your habits and how you're reaching for devices. And me and you were talking about how you've been really more in touch with like outside.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've just been on my phone, like social media, like promoting my podcast and like just heavy on screens. But I would say, even in that world, I found one tool, which is to educate myself and put more positive information in my head. But I want to see with you, like, what would you leave everyone with in the sense of like something simple or easy that you would suggest to like navigate what we're going through right now in regards to like overload of like information, like.
Yeah. I think I could answer it. My simple answer is so simple, but it's where what I've been meditating on is like
Mhm.
land or like space or
Mhm.
exploration, but it's more about what I'm actually concerned about with the AI piece is like
Yeah.
our bodies and our minds, our emotions are tied to the land that we're on. And I think that,
Mhm.
I travel a lot. I try to jump in the water a lot. I try to not use my GPS. I love my GPS, but I'll try to go somewhere that's not on the map, anything interesting, and I'll walk. And I think it's so simple, but it does so much because I think, as I said, a person's a place. I think that there are unexplored parts of us that are not being accessed because we're in a
Mhm.
box. So like if I'm in the box of my phone or I'm in the box of my computer, there's good there too. I think there's like obviously this conversation we're like going through a portal
Yeah,
potentially, but it's like it's more about your
it's true.
physical body and that you have a responsibility with it. It's
Mhm.
with you for a time and then it's gone. And I think that the physical exploration, the curiosity of the land you're in, because like there's I can't pronounce it, but there was an Aboriginal term that I was exploring recently that's really beautiful about like the word law of the land or like the spirit of the land. And their whole thing was like they're all wrapped together. So like my feeling of responsibility for the land that I'm on is connected to me like moving through that land and feeling into where in the world that I am, like having some spatial connection. And I do worry if we lose that, then
Wow.
we lose something more. I'm just because there's so much to see, and I don't necessarily mean like buy an overseas ticket. It's more of like there's
Mhm.
so much to see that could be just down your street. And
Absolutely.
go and just like stumble and wander. I think that's my main thing that I would encourage people to do now.
I love that. That's like, and it's accessible to anybody. You don't have to go far. And growing up, I grew up with a Sufi, traditionally Sufi background. Every time we would go to a new city, if we were driving, there would always be like a prayer we would say. And the prayer was like, a combination of different, verses. But also like there was like a specific prayer of saying like, okay, we're coming into this land of that we don't know, and we're coming into like the people of this land. And if we need to be in service, we will be. And if we get lost, we'll connect with the people who will show us the way.
Yeah.
And I think that like it is something that I haven't really come across any other people that travel and say some or make like kind of like an intention in that way. But I think like what you're sharing is like so important because it's like we are very much connected to the frequency of wherever we're at,
Yeah.
and it to be conscious of it can like enrich in your experience and also I think be like a not to be fearful, but like a protection, because you have like now your senses are opened up to be, kind of like aware of your where you're going and then intentionally connecting. But I
Yeah.
really love that. I think that's like that's such a good advice and perspective. So that we can like, just not be stuck, in the box, like you said, like the phone and the computer and the four walls of the house. And
Yeah, and places can
yeah.
feel like home that maybe don't have a connection to your lineage. And I found that too.
Mhm.
Like I found places where I felt at home that aren't connected to my actual homeland, but
Mhm.
that I can't explain. And it doesn't have to do fully with the people. And so I think there's something about us being like multi-layered, uh like we're just many different people, I would say. And one, it's weird to hear that from a therapist without me being like, you have, split personality or multiple personality. It's, this goes back to why I'm interested in IFS, internal family systems, like the idea
Mhm.
that we hold, memories and energies or whatever you want to call it of our ancestors, our parents, of people that lived before us. And I think that maybe we take the task of honoring whatever that is that we carry and try to improve on. Maybe we don't. I'm not, there's no judgment, but just knowing that you are that, like you're made of
Mhm.
many. And I think a land maybe poetically brings that into the forefront a bit more. Like it feels more of a a reality where like, oh, I feel at home here and I don't know where it's
Mhm.
coming from. And it's like you are made of many people and there's
Wow.
pieces of you that wake up in that place you wandered in. There's places of you that you meet, maybe an old part of you hadn't met in a while, or maybe for the
Mm.
first time. So I think it's like a beautiful way to honor that and not label it ADHD or like, a
Yeah.
disorder. It's like maybe you are just more in tune with that nature of how we are just existing.
Yeah, I really that resonates with me because when I moved back, I recently moved back to Atlanta. I was in Virginia. I just wasn't feeling like any kind of I have, my community there, but I just wasn't feeling like a strong connection with the land in that sense. Like I would go to like different parks or trails and they were beautiful physically to look at them, but when I came to like back to Atlanta, I was just like, it's like almost like I felt this like relief. Like I felt like almost like my shoulders dropped. And it's like, even if I haven't been to that many trails since I've been here, it's like the few moments that I've walked, in different areas, I don't know, I just feel like really grounded.
Yeah.
And it's that perspective you shared really helps me look at myself in a different way. I think it's almost kind of like, there was a little bit of confusion. I'm like, why Atlanta? Like why, I've been here before, but I do remember even if I had maybe not some great experiences when I was here before, I still felt that it was like this very subtle connection. And I'm wondering actually if that's what brought me back.
It could
That
be.
connection to the land. And
It could be. You're having me feel encouraged to pull up a quote that I read recently about land, and I
mm,
stayed with me and I didn't know how to apply it. So now that we're on this, I was like, maybe I could share it here. It says, when I'm on my country, I know who I am. When I leave it, I carry it with me. When I'm cut from it, I do not know what time I'm in. And I just thought that was beautiful because
wow.
some people think that where you were born could be when your country, and it could be. But it also could be a place that you feel rooted. And I think the introduction of time is fascinating because of the nature of the work that I do with people is time gets distorted a lot. Like when we're not
Mhm.
well or people who are depressed can experience like 5 years in 1 year.
Mm.
And I think that the way time moves fascinates me in terms of like where it can feel different and no one can know, like nobody could know somebody's kind of buried under layers of like kind of the bottom of the ocean in some sense because they don't
Wow.
know what time it is. And so I
Mhm.
think of like rootedness and movement and return from the perspective of time, and you can feel it. You can feel time changes. I would imagine that's how you feel when you
Yeah.
move.
Yeah. That's so accurate. Yeah. It's so interesting because I guess maybe I've had a couple of times where I've lost my sense of time, but it wasn't something that was like scary. Like it wasn't anything that I was worried about. But when I was talking to like someone that I know, in Virginia, and I'm like, what's today again? And they're like, are you okay? And I'm like, I actually am okay. That it didn't bother me that I didn't know what the day was. I kind of felt like I was kind of more present in my day, that information wasn't important, and of course everyone has different obligations, in their day, but I also have my obligations too, of how I take care of myself. And but yeah, no, that really is, I love that quote. Definitely, I'm definitely gonna like reflect on that a lot. But I was gonna say I wanted to open up the floor if anyone had any comments or any questions that they wanted to share, or um, if not, I appreciate everyone coming on. And whoever watches this later, because we're gonna, this is recorded. We're gonna post it, inshallah, God willing. We're gonna post it on YouTube on my channel, Sun and Sky. And yeah, I want to say thank you, Gina. Like, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing your wisdom, your wealth. MashaAllah, like God bless. Like I just you guys, even like outside of this like conversation, we could go on for hours. Like that's what I love about her. And I feel so honored that you took the time to come on here and and share your experiences
Thanks for
and
having. I wish you knew how much I absolutely hate speaking in public. To the but I've learned to do it because it has to be for a good reason, and
yeah.
the person matters. Like you to me are
Mhm.
somebody that you always seem to you're trying to weave together things that I think are kind of lost now. And so I'm like, this is your time. Like I think people
Alhamdulillah.
like you are at a point now that we need more of this. And it's
Yeah.
more than like a podcast to me. It's not you just having people follow. It's something that it's you're putting out an energy, you're creating a space, and that's worth a lot. That doesn't have to be something that's like on Google Maps and is like, it has all these reviews. Like I find some of the best stuff that doesn't have reviews. I recently like stumbled into, I think you saw my post, but I was trying to get bread. I was trying to get really good bread in my
Mhm.
area. And I thought it was a real bread place called Baguette Republic, but it turns out it was a factory. So I
Mhm.
go in, the smell is amazing. I couldn't go in at first, but some guy was like, you know what, just come in. So I come in, and it's not a place they sell individually, but they didn't want me to leave empty-handed, so they gave me like a sourdough loaf and like a muffin and a croissant. I was like so overwhelmed because that's something that I don't usually experience in this part. Like
Mhm.
again, I love the US, but I think overseas that seems like a much more common thing to happen.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I really think there was healing in that muffin. I know that sounds ridiculous, but
Oh, definitely.
I tasted it and I was like, this meant so much more to
Ugh.
me. And one other thing I'll say, there was a woman that I met in who has a cafe, and this woman, she recommended this movie called Like Water for Chocolate. It's a Mexican movie, but it's about the idea that like whatever food you make, it the emotions that you have go into the cooking. And so I don't want to ruin the movie, but there's a way in which she has this effect on the food of the guests she's serving because of the experience she's going through. It's a really beautiful movie. I recommend.
Oh,
And this
definitely.
woman recommended it to me because we got in the conversation of food, and when you eat food, you're eating the environment, you're eating like the conversation, the emotions that are being exchanged. And so I just want to remind people, always remind myself that like whenever you eat something, like eat in with good words, like be mindful to share good words. And
Mhm.
when you give food too, like people feel it, they feel the intention behind it, just who you are. And I don't think that that's magical thinking. I don't think that that's like
Mhm.
too imaginal.
Mhm.
I think that's real. I think we live in a
Yeah.
world that is real.
Oh my God, I love that. That's just like a great way to seal up a Sunday. Like, because like before we get into the hustle and bustle of the week, like we want to just kind of wind down and like just really, kind of enjoy the beautiful things that are within our reach. And so thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate you. Like I can't wait to post this and see how people respond, and who knows, there might be a part two. I would love to like explore some more topics with you, inshallah, in the future.
Keep doing this. I always support you regardless of how long it takes for you to be seen. I really this really believe in you. So I'm so thankful you created this space. And thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks, Amber. Thanks, Spencer. I really appreciate you guys coming on, and I will post this soon. Everyone have an awesome rest of your Sunday, and don't forget to relax. Right. Peace. Bye.